A solitary figure, George lacked the opportunity to start a family of his own, finding solace in the companionship of his loyal border collie Joe. Together, they traversed the farm's expanse, Joe's unwavering assistance ensuring George's nightly rest, for farming was anything but serene. That year, the climate wreaked havoc, veering between floods and droughts, decimating crops. Yet, George wasn't the sole victim. Neighboring forests endured relentless battering from savage winds, flash floods, and forest infernos. Locals witnessed a surge of desperate wildlife emerging in search of sustenance, a heartbreaking sight that touched everyone in the community. As the prospect of an entire year's harvest wasted away loomed over him, George found himself sinking into despair. Despite the town's collective efforts to support one another, resources were scarce. George struggled to shake off the looming gloom, seeking refuge in Joe's companionship. He attempted to engage in activities he once enjoyed, but the pall of impending hardship weighed heavily upon him, offering little respite. On a somber day, George embarked on his routine rounds across the farm, vigilant for any signs of trouble. Amidst the aftermath of a recent storm, he stumbled upon an unexpected sight, a seemingly lifeless cat that, upon closer inspection, revealed itself to be an animal. Though barely stirring, it responded to George's touch, signaling a desperate need for aid. Emaciated and caked in mud, the creature's identity was obscured, stirring a sense of urgency within George. Moved by compassion, George resolved to intervene, refusing to leave the helpless creature to its fate. Tenderly lifting the animal, he sensed its resignation, fueling his determination to provide care. With Joe in tow, George carried the creature back to his home. Once there, George bathed the animal, revealing a startling discovery. It was a lynx, a creature he had encountered only once before. Recognizing its need for nourishment, George tended to the lynx, coaxing it back to health with warmth and sustenance. Though initially unresponsive, the lynx gradually responded to George's care, providing hope for its recovery. After 2 days of nurturing the ailing cat with intermittent milk feedings, George rejoiced as it regained enough strength to partake in some spare meat he had. Witnessing the lynx's restored vigor, George realized it was time to release it back into the wild, despite feeling a twinge of sadness at bidding farewell to the beautiful creature. On the appointed day, George bid adieu to the lynx, believing it would vanish into the wilderness for good. Yet, to his surprise, the lynx returned that very evening, crying for sustenance at his doorstep. George welcomed it back with open arms, continuing to care for the wild cat for months. Its presence provided solace during tough times, helping George endure a challenging harvesting season. However, one day, the lynx stopped coming back. Though initially feeling abandoned, George assumed it had moved on with its life, perhaps finding a mate. As spring brought abundance back to the land, George's focus shifted to harvesting, relegating thoughts of his furry friend to the back of his mind. About a year later, peculiar occurrences began to unfold in town as bear sightings surged. Residents were cautioned to secure their homes against the encroaching predators. Confident in Joe's protective capabilities, George left his back door open, trusting his faithful companion to keep intruders at bay. Yet, this casual approach proved to be a grave oversight. Unaware of the looming danger, George relaxed on his sofa one cool evening, dismissing disturbances in the kitchen as Joe's routine antics. However, his negligence was about to precipitate dire consequences. As George heard another noise, he sat up, only to find his guard dog, Joe, fast asleep at his feet. Panic gripped him as he realized that Joe couldn't be the source of the disturbance. It must be an intruder. He hoped fervently that it was a friendly one. Moments later, a mastiff grizzly bear lumbered into the living room, its bloodshot eyes fixed on George. The farmer's breath caught in his throat as he grappled with the reality of a bear in his home. With a deafening roar, the bear startled Joe awake. In a split second, Joe lunged at the intruder, but a single swipe sent him sprawling. Horror washed over George as he watched his loyal companion fall. He braced himself for the bear's next move, shouting in a futile attempt to intimidate the beast. However, his efforts only seemed to enrage it further as it prepared to attack. Just as the bear lunged forward, George threw himself behind the sofa, bracing for impact. Yet, instead of the anticipated blow, he heard a commotion, a cacophony of growls and scuffles. Peeking out from his hiding spot, he witnessed a remarkable sight. The Lynx, his friend from the year before, had returned to his aid, joining forces with Joe to fend off the bear. The combined effort proved too much for the bear, which opted for retreat rather than confrontation. George could scarcely believe his fortune. Thanks to the Lynx's timely intervention, both he and Joe were spared. It was a poignant reminder that kindness, even in the animal kingdom, never goes unnoticed or unrewarded. In that moment, George realized the profound depth of connection forged through acts of compassion, a truly beautiful testament to the enduring power of empathy.